Thank you very much. We'd like to start off by thanking President Zelensky for allowing the 7 African countries to participate in this peace mission. This is indeed a historic mission in a quest for peace. And I could say that our mission really revolves around 10 key elements. The first one is that we are here to listen both to President Zelensky, and tomorrow we'll be listening to President Putin. And we do so with deep respect for the people of Ukraine, which we have expressed to President Zelensky, but also in recognition of the proposals that they have put forward as a peace formula. We're going to also listen to President Putin with regard to how he sees the road to peace. But we've also taken cognizance of a number of other proposals that have been made by a number of other parties around the world. And we do believe that this process for peace, much as it is complex, requires that all viewpoints must be put on the table. A second key element that we bring here is that this war must be settled, and there should be peace through negotiations and diplomatic means. And we should, as we advance towards that peace, because all wars in the end do come to an end. And we believe that this war should be brought to an end as quickly as possible through negotiation and diplomatic means. The third element for us is that there must be a de-escalation of the conflict. Today, as we were here, we heard of missile strikes, and those types of activities are not good for fostering peace. And we argue that there must be de-escalation on both sides so that peace can find a way to resolve the problem. We recognize the fourth element, the sovereignty of nations and countries in accordance with the UN Charter that must be respected. The fifth element is that there must be a guarantee for security for all countries. The sixth element is that both countries must ensure that there is movement of grain and fertilizers. What has also brought us here is that Africa is also feeling the negative impact of this war. Our grain prices have gone up and there's a shortage. Fertilizer prices have also shot up. So even as we are thousands of kilometers away as African countries, we are feeling the impact of this war. And we say that when it comes to things like grain and fertilizers, there should be an opening up of the logistics so that grain and fertilizers must get to the market. The seventh key element is the humanitarian side, that there must be humanitarian support. There are people who have become victims of this war, who are suffering, and we support that humanitarian assistance must be given to those who have become real victims of this war. The eighth key element for us is that the prisoners of war must be exchanged, and that there must also be a return of the children to their homes. The ninth element is that there must be post-war reconstruction. There should be assistance to those who have suffered as a result of this war, and there must be reconstruction. The 10th key element for us is that during the course of our discussions, President Zelensky said, yes, we should engage further, and we as African countries are prepared to participate in further engagement. We never thought that our engagement today, and say tomorrow as well in Russia, will lead to the results that will end this, but we want to engage so that a peaceful solution is found. So we welcome President Zelensky's openness that there should be further engagements, and as African leaders we stand ready and willing to have further engagements. Thank you very much. We came here to listen, and to listen with a great deal of respect and recognition of what the people of Ukraine have been going through. We did go to Bucha and we saw what had happened there, and I've been told that there are investigations, the International Court is going on with that, and I think from where we stand, that process should be allowed to go on. And in our view, it is important to listen very carefully to what both countries have to say. And tomorrow we are now going to listen to President Putin. And let me say that having been the one person who also, on behalf of the 7 countries, called both presidents, I got a distinct impression that, yes, they were willing not only to receive us, but also to hear what the proposals or the suggestions we would put on the table. That, to me, told me that there is a willingness to get this war to come to an end. And President Zelensky has said so, of course. He has said that they have their 10-point formula, and which we listened to. And tomorrow we listen to President Putin. And as President Macky Sall said, we will then be able, together, the 7 countries, to come up with a summary. And what we are really heartened with is that there's a willingness for further engagements with us as African countries, and that in the end is going to enable us to have further discussions and also analyzing the views of both countries. So tomorrow we listen to President Putin. Today, having listened to a very honest and a heartfelt account from President Zelensky, and we thank him for having been so direct and having been so honest about giving us an account of what is happening here in the Ukraine. Thank you. Ukrainians feel that they must fight and not give up. The road to peace is very hard. It's not easy. And even Nelson Mandela, when he wrote his book, Long Road to Freedom, he also knew that it was not easy. But at the same time, even when it was most difficult, even for us who felt that we should continue fighting against the apartheid misrulers of our country and we shouldn't give up, he said, we've got to find peace. We've got to make peace, because he also realized, as our leader, that the continuation of the oppression and exploitation by the apartheid government was wreaking a lot of suffering and damage to the people of South Africa. And that's why he said, let us make peace, knowing that peacemaking is not easy. It is very, very difficult. And I say this not out of disrespect for the people of Ukraine. I do believe that they have a deep sense of feeling, and today we even told President Zelensky that we not only recognize their viewpoint, but we also respect how they feel about the war that's going on. But we also said there is a need to bring this conflict to an end sooner rather than later, because all conflicts do in the end have to come to an end. And the best way is to bring a conflict to an end before everything is lost. And this is the message that we've put forward. And we're also here to share the African perspective, because we have a perspective. Many countries in Africa have had conflicts which have been resolved under very difficult and different circumstances, where people struggled to find peace, but finally knew that peace had to be made and it had to be found, however difficult it is. So without being, minimizing the suffering of the people of Ukraine, we are saying that's the proposal that we're putting on the table. And we rather pleased that President Zelensky has said, yes, let proposals be put on the table so that the march to peace can also have a number of participants. And we as African countries have chosen to be some of those participants and to make our humble, very humble contribution, a contribution that recognizes the many other proposals that have been made. And if you look at a number of the proposals, there are a number of similarities. They connect somewhere, and in the end, there can be a foundation for peace. And we hope that through these efforts, we can all join in helping to bring this conflict to an end. Thank you very much. Yes, as you correctly say, we are going to St. Petersburg. We are going to see President Putin. And in the key elements that I pointed out, I did say that as all of us here, we respect the UN Charter. For us, that is a very important and key charter that unites various countries of the world. And in our discussions with President Putin, we will be talking about the importance of the UN Charter. And we're not the first group that is calling for a peaceful settlement, that has articulated the issue of respect for the sovereignty of countries. Many others have, and so we are also reiterating what has been said. And another key element that I spoke to was that there should be security for all countries, and indeed both countries. They should have a sense of security that their own sovereignty and standing is also secured. And that's another key issue that also needs to be discussed. The quest for peace, in our view, is an important one. And the launching of the missiles today, in our view, does not deter us and has not stopped us from continuing to call for de-escalation. It is precisely this type of event that we saw today, or witnessed, or even experienced, that makes us call for de-escalation. And there are offensives on both sides, and we are saying those must be de-escalated as both countries proceed on the road to peace. And the road to peace is not an easy one. It's often a very difficult one. We also, from our own country, had to traverse that difficult road to peace. And even when the conflict becomes most intense, that is when peace should be made and be found. I specifically remember the efforts of the founding father of our democracy, President Mandela, who, even when he was in prison and apartheid was at its highest and its worst, he said this was the time for us to enter into negotiations to bring the nightmare of apartheid to an end. So we do believe that even at this stage, even as there's intensification of the conflict, there should be de-escalation, and there should be commitment to peace, and we should find ways of ensuring that indeed there's negotiations and there's also a movement towards settling this conflict. As we said, this conflict is also affecting African countries negatively, touching on the livelihoods of 1.2 or 1.3 billion people on the African continent who are being negatively affected. And that is what has also brought us here, as I said. We do want this conflict to be settled. It is going to be to the benefit of the peoples in the world as well as the peoples of Africa. Thank you.